Hello and welcome to Lunch Therapy. I'm your host, Joel Marshall. We're in a space plane today. Hopefully it's not a Boeing space plane because we don't want to get stuck up here in space like those poor people that are stuck up at the International Space Station. Look at this cool trick. You can pour water diagonally. It's amazing. Space is so much fun. Do you want a sip? Oh, I forgot. He doesn't drink water. He just likes to mouth the words as I say them. It's a weird alien thing to do. Let's get into the show. We've got a great guest today. We got Kezia Norton, and she's a hilarious comedian and an actor, and we're going to have her on the show. So let's do this thing. It is called Lunch Therapy. I'm going to get myself a modem. I'm going to get myself a modem. I'm gonna 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 get myself a modem. All right, now we're in the show. Here we are in the show. This is the portion of the show for those of you that maybe have never seen the show before. You've been living under a rock or something. This is the part of the show where I just talk about like what's going on in the comedy community, and we've got some really exciting things happening. We've got a show tonight, which is everybody knows D's Nuts, right? It's a big comedian show, comedy show. Sally Mullins, Vargas Mason. They are doing an inaugural show at a thing called the Kookaburra, which is like a new venue in Hollywood. Check it out. It's like the happeningest, hottest club to hit the LA scene in decades. Kookaburra. It's supposed to be super nice. I haven't been over there yet. I hear there's food. I hear there's comedy. I hear it's only $3 for parking, which is like a miracle on Hollywood Boulevard. I don't think you can find that anywhere. So get on over there, unless, of course, you're going to go to this other thing, which is quite amazing as well. Show and Tell. Show and Tell, it's an incredible film festival that's been happening in the backyard of some of our favorite people, Seth Word, Kyle Helf, and various other people put on this show. They've been doing it for 10 years. 10 years. Can you imagine sticking to something for 10 years like this? And it's always good. I've had a couple of shows in there, lunch therapy shows. There's even a thing you can vote, because they're going to be giving out awards on Saturday night. So like if you go to D's Nuts on Friday and then you go to the award show on Saturday, you go to showtellshow.com, sign up, show up, have fun, you meet filmmakers. It's all comedy films. So there you have it. That's like perfect for us, right? So this is Interview Friday. We're going to get into the breathing first, because I need to breathe because I'm talking like a mile a minute. Let's do it. Here we are, courage and confidence. I wanted to mention, this is a Leo Healing Vibrations. It's a tribute to the Leos out there, for those of you into astrology. And we've got 3 Leos that are hummingbirds, watch the show, that are also regulars and participants on the show. 3 of them last week, Howard Aronin being one, Todd Lee being the other, and the other is Super Jeff Lohman, who just had his birthday yesterday. So I want to say happy birthday to those folks out there. It's kind of weird that we had 3 like major forces like that all in one week. So I thought we should have some kind of tribute to that while we breathe. On this show, we breathe. Other shows, they don't. Other shows, maybe even they're like virtual, I don't know, not even real people. But here it's real people, it's live, it's happening right now. It's not like didn't just happen like a month ago. It's happening right now. In through the nose, out through the toes. And I expect you to breathe, Kezia, there in the green room, and everybody out there, let go. I am like a tyrant about breathing. It's weird. I'm not really a tyrant about anything else. Except for, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. I used to be a weird tyrant about horizontal video, that all video should be horizontal, and I lost that war. I totally lost it. It's all vertical now. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Equal means equal, says Sethward and Kyle are the best. Yeah. Show and tell, showtell.com, showtellshow.com. If you want to join us over there this evening or Saturday night. Behind me is Healing Vibrations. They are a wonderful outfit out of Seattle, Washington. You can go over to their YouTube channel anytime, get a crystal sound bath. I won't even be there like telling you what to do. You just do whatever you want. It's kind of cool. Here we go, moving along. We're going to do a little music. I'm going to bring Kezia on the show. Hand players out there in the world. Again, this song is called For Leo, so I think we're at the end of that astrology phase now. Moving into, I don't know, Capricorn? Somebody out there would know. This is all part of the relaxation process that we do here. Because this is called lunch therapy. There is no lunch. So there's got to be some therapy, I guess. Love this guy. He's over in Germany. All right, now I want to thank the Patreons. Patreons are what fuel this show. Mike Knox, Todd Lee, Kamala Lopez, Liz Lopez, Robert Lopez, Jay Patterson, famous Mama J, Pam Palmieri, going to be doing a show with her in Michigan, coming up next month. More to come. Neil Phillips, Sethward, Mary Marks, and as an added bonus, we just got to 30,000 subscribers. So that's pretty cool. Thanks everybody for everything you do for the show, all the people that have been in the chat room over the, I don't know, how long's it been? 4 years? It's crazy. Seems like it just started. All right, let's get into this thing now. We're getting to Interview Friday. My guest today is a very special person. He's very special in the comedy community. If you go to her Instagram, you'll see a lot of the great comedians in town performing with her. I first met her really was, I don't know, I've probably seen her before. I met her at Tuesday Thomas's art gallery show. I believe it was called Clown Church over on Adams. We had gone to see Ginny Sykes, and there was just an assortment of really talented comedians in this tiny little thing, little gallery on Adams. I don't know. Kezia and I might have been the only people in person at the show, but it was also being sent out to the internet. Yeah, and but it was really fun, and I met her. She is just a really fantastic person. She's been a big part of the community. She's an accomplished actor. She's from Buffalo, New York. She just recently did an award-winning one-woman show called Fill Your Pockets with Sunshine. And I was lucky enough to check that out. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful performance. And if you get a chance to see it, we'll have to ask her if she's performing it again soon. But right now, you're going to get her live here on Interview Friday, Lunch Therapy. Let's do this thing.
my dad to tell him that my ex got divorced again. He goes, oh, well, now we know it wasn't you. That's my dad's way of cheering me up. My dad's the reason why I'm in therapy. Like, I pretend my therapist is my dad and that I'm enough. That usually gets a bigger laugh. Maybe it was my delivery, a little too angry. Yeah, and my dad and I, we've always had like a really rocky relationship. And my mom came up with this plan for us to get along better. She died.
Oh my gosh. All right. Kezia, welcome to Lunch Therapy.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, Joel.
Oh, it's
good
so
to
great
see
to have
you.
It's good to see you too. That was some dark humor. I was like, oh my God.
Right. Yeah, I actually am kind of dark, but
it's funny because your show is called Fill Your Pockets with Sunshine.
yeah.
And then there's a lot of really like challenging things that you deal with and you have dealt with throughout your life. Is the Fill Your Pockets with Sunshine, is that about when times are hard, just grab yourself a piece of sun and put it in your pockets? Or what does it mean to you?
Well, for me, that's literally what my mom said to me.
Yeah.
Because you had mentioned that you had seen the show.
Yeah.
And I've always held that ever since she said that to me. I've always kept that literally in my pockets. Like when I get really blue, I just reach in, grab some sunshine and try and erase the tears kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's about looking at life, like if you're in a city and there's cement everywhere, but then all of a sudden you see a crack in the cement, there's a tree growing out of it. There's always something beautiful to look at. Even if it's really horrible, you don't always know why life is being horrible to you, but then later on it can be revealed and hopefully you end up growing and changing. And then those rough times really allow you to really feel the sunshine when the sunshine's right with you and in you. Because I think a lot of times people, when they're happy, they don't even really know that they're happy because they're so busy complaining,
Yeah.
That makes sense?
It totally does. I think about Dwight Schrute, the guy who played Dwight Schrute on The Office. He's talking about how he was like really depressed. And he said when he was on The Office, he was really unhappy because he wasn't a movie star and his movies weren't opening up the way he wanted them to. And now he looks back on it and it's like, what the hell? I was on the most popular sitcom in the decade and I was unhappy. So people can be unhappy at all times. And I was saying that to my wife the other day, that it was like, sometimes when you're unhappy, you kind of just have to find something to make you happy. And I don't know if I think this is a Thich Nhat Hanh quote where he says, just find something that makes you happy, even if it's just breathing in and out, which is probably one of the reasons we do the breathing in and out on the show.
I know. I love that.
I started doing that, when the show began because it just calms me down. But also, I think it is also something that makes you happier as well because you get that oxygen going, get that blood moving. Now, the thing is, you see yourself mainly primarily you're an actor. Is that right? And you became to comedy from that?
Yeah, it's really funny. Nobody ever asked me that question until I started doing my solo show, which is not stand-up comedy. It's, dramedy. and performance piece, if you
Mhm.
will. And now people are a little like, so which one are you? Originally, since I'm gonna go way back.
Okay.
When I was 4 years old and my brothers and I used to sit and watch TV, I was like, I want to be in that TV looking out at the audience. Like, no question. It's the only thing, Joel, I've ever, and I mean ever, wanted to do.
Well, I know what you mean. I mean, same thing. I was like 3 years old. My friend asked me what I wanted to be, and I said I want to be an actor. And I was in Seattle, which is the equivalent of Buffalo, New York, as far as, well, probably less. There were probably less actors there than in Buffalo. You know, I mean, there were no actors. There were no actors, and I mean, there were like a few actors at the regional theater, but it wasn't like there were people in my town. But they were like, my friend was like, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "An actor," and I was like, I was sure of it.
Yeah.
And so you too were sure of it at 4 years old.
Absolutely. It's the only thing I dream of before I go to sleep every single night of my entire life, literally. So that is like my soul's blood. Like that is what keeps me getting up in the morning. But then when I was in New York City, I was doing an internship at this theater. It was a very prominent theater during its time called Ensemble Studio Theatre.
Mm-hmm.
And Lewis Black was doing a comedy class there. And this woman who was in charge of some of us interns, she was like, "Hey, Norton, you're kind of funny. Why don't you take a comedy class with Lewis Black?" And I was like, okay, cool. So then I took his class. It was, oh my gosh, it was so memorable. I love Lewis. We're still friends today. And so out of that class, I think I'm still the only person doing comedy since that particular class. So anyway, then I got that bug, and I've done them both at the same time. And then some times I've pulled out of comedy and then gotten back in, and vice versa with acting. But now it's really hard to say. I'm equal.
Yeah.
But if you said to me, Kezia, if you had to live with only one passion, I would have to say acting. Because I think I would honestly die if I couldn't act.
Yeah. Does, when you were taking from Lewis Black, I mean, I just know him really from The Daily Show, but I know he's been around for a long time. We had somebody on the show that was interviewing him, I think, back in the 80s at the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival, I believe. So he's somebody who's been around for a lot. What was his technique that he taught you back then? Because I look at him and he's sort of like a ranter. Like he seems like that's his brand, you know?
Yeah.
What was his teaching style like?
Well, basically we started with a story, a funny story, and it had to be true. And that, because it was a very beginner comedy class. It was literally, okay, this is ABC of comedy. And so that's what we focused on for that class. And then we performed it. And yeah. And he really was very right off, you know, right away. I mean, this is years and decades ago.
Yeah, I know. But it's interesting to hear the origin of it, you know, hear the origin, what got you lit up about it. When you first walked on stage to do stand-up comedy, did you kind of know this is kind of my element? You know, did you feel like you found something?
Yeah. Actually, the very first thing I did when I got on stage, I actually bought a curly black wig, lit a cigarette, and wore a blazer, and I imitated Lewis Black.
That's what he looked like back then?
I don't know why I did that.
You did? Did you bring it there intentionally going, I'm going to do this?
Oh, yeah. He had no idea.
And he had no idea?
And when I got off stage, he was like, "What the fuck were you doing?" I was like, "Oh my God, she is not imitating me." And I was like, "Yeah, I was." And
what made
I don't
you
know
do
if
that?
it was any good. You know what? I felt like I didn't know how to start my act. And I know this sounds really bizarre, but I loved the Sonny and Cher show when I was younger.
Oh yeah.
And I loved Cher, and she would dress up and be different characters and stuff like that, and Carol Burnett. So I've always, like in my solo show, I do different characters in my solo show.
Yeah.
I love doing different character work. So I think that's how that actually came about. But yeah. And then
That's
I
great,
took
though.
off my blazer and the whole audience started laughing. I thought they were laughing because I was flat. So then I made a joke and no one knew what the hell I was talking about. And then I got into my story and it was fine. It was fun. But yeah. And then after that, I just wanted to keep getting up on stage. So
yeah. For people that are starting out in comedy, do you have any advice for like how to open your act? Because a lot of times I think people don't know how to open it. Because you get up there on stage and you're just like, all of a sudden you're like talking.
yeah. Well, I really believe that if it's your very first one, a bit of an introduction. I personally like to know who you are, where you're from, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So and like for me, my name is different and people can never say my name. They just can't. I mean, some people can, yes, but a lot of people can't. So I do start with my name because not everybody in the whole world has seen my act. So a lot of
Yeah.
times I will open with my name and I have a bunch of jokes around my name and stuff and stories with that. But I really think it's a bit of an introduction, and more than anything is being authentically you. And I personally think that starting with stories is a great way to leapfrog into comedy. What happens is, as you know, is you start with a story and then it might have a lot of fat on it, and then you cut it down over time of telling the story, and then you get to your jokes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say those are maybe
And
the
that
four
takes time to
things.
find where the jokes are, because really when you start out and you're telling stories, you're seeing the images of the stories. Most of the time they're stories from your life. You're seeing the images and you're describing them as you do it. And you've told these stories before, but you don't necessarily know where the punchlines are. And sometimes the punchlines are not where you think they are. And sometimes you have to put in punchlines. And sometimes you have to change the story a little bit so that it suits the audience better. Maybe you find out that you're not the hero of the story at some point. People don't like you. So you kind of have to like modify it a little bit. Did you ever find a teacher that helped you shape stories? Because the one person show that you do is very story driven and you're telling a lot of stories from your life, but it's compelling and it has a through line. Did you ever find somebody that helped you kind of craft your comedy in a particular way, like a mentor, besides maybe Lewis Black?
I've had a decent amount of coaches, and recently, well, I'd say during COVID and things, I worked a lot, and I still do, with Mary Kennedy at the Biz Studio.
She's
And
great.
yeah, she's awesome. And what I love about her, and Bobby Oliver at Dow of Comedy, the two, Bobby and Mary, have really given me a lot of golden nuggets. I always call Bobby Oliver like the wordsmith. She's amazing with words, and she would just look at my set and go, "Oh, wrong word. Got to use this. Too many words here. Cut it out. Boom. Move this here." And Mary Kennedy is really good with like kind of structuring. They're both really good, great at all of this. Okay, it's just these are the two that really, really help me a
Stand out
lot.
to you.
Yeah. And so Mary is really good. Okay, these are your first 5 minutes. These are your second 5 minutes. And then you build, like in class, you'll start with your first solid five. And she really helps you kind of go through the, keeping all this together, and then whatever. Okay, this is my childhood. This is my blah, 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 kind of thing. And then when it comes to my solo show, my director, Charlene Ward, who is Kathy in Lexi and Kathy, Charlene really, really helped me with my script. Now I started doing my solo show in Mary Kennedy's solo show class. I have wanted to do that show, and I am not kidding. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, but since I was 28 years old. And yeah, it's been, and I knew the material was so hard. I just didn't know about solo shows like this. I mean, of course, stand-up comedy shows and specials, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I didn't know this whole world about solo shows. And I had thought about it about a year ago. I was like, you know what? I really need to do that show. And then literally the next day I get an email from Mary saying, I'm starting a solo show class. I was like,
wow.
that's it. That's my sign. Bam.
Do you believe in that life gives you signs like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Do you feel like you control your destiny? Like you can predict where you're going to go and go there? Or do you do that as a practice at all? Or do you just look for signs?
I believe that you can't just let life happen to you. You have to, you don't have to, but it's helpful, in my opinion, to create and do. And even like I might say, okay, I want to get cast in a role on, let's say, like a Law and Order type show. But the universe might say, no, you're going to get cast in this comedy, dramedy. And so I don't have control over that, but I really believe it's helpful to visualize like where you want to go. You have your goals, and every day you take certain steps, even if it's one. Just, it's amazing how just taking one step towards your goal that makes you feel so much better. And then every day, if you take one little step towards every goal, after 1 year, how many steps have you taken? That's huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do believe in that.
You also put your vision into the world by just taking a step.
Yeah.
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 I'm going to play a little clip from Fill Your Pockets. It's from your Instagram. So it's kind of tiny, but it's vertical video.
I used to crimp and tease my Dorothy Hamill haircut. And then I'd spray it with a ton of Aquanet. Aquanet hairspray was like cement. Like you could take me and put me horizontal and use my hair as a weapon.
All right. So that actually reminds me, you were a figure skater.
Yeah.
You were a figure skater when you were a kid. How did that impact you? Was this like, I'm going to take the stage? Oh, wait, I'm going to, like that thing we were talking about, you shake an apple tree, you get a pear. Maybe you were like, I got to take the stage. Oh, well, maybe it'll be a stage of ice. How did you get involved in that?
There's a few things that were kind of happening. I saw Dorothy Hamill win the Olympics, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I love that. I sort of had this feeling that my family would never support me as an actor, like just emotionally. It was just something that I always kind of felt. Not that that existed. It's just my thoughts. And I thought, well, figure skating's tangible. Plus I kid you not, I did look like a boy when I was a kid. I really did. And I had a lot of, it was not easy. I really went through a lot of hate being female, I hated myself for being female. I wanted to be a boy so that I could be more like my brothers, and maybe my dad would pay more attention to me. Like all that is in my show, right? So I thought if I started figure skating, people would really think I was a girl.
Oh,
I really thought that.
Yeah.
But when I saw Dorothy Hamill, I was like, oh my God, I love the ice. And
you're so famous back then too, with her camel
exactly.
and her haircut.
Yeah. So it was a whole bunch of things, but I think I really just was like, skating looks like so much fun. Well, it's fun, but it's hard. And when I hear people commenting from the couch, like, oh, she fell, I'm like, dude,
It's
You
got to be one of the
no
hardest sports
idea.
there is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
got to be.
it is. Yeah,
I mean, and then
it's
also
a crazy
you
sport.
say in your show that they pretty much were trying to push you into being anorexic, or were trying to push you into being anorexic.
Oh, absolutely. I can't even name his name. To me, he's like Satan. But this one particular coach just did a number on so many kids, and it's a shame. But yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did
Calling
you?
me fat, and I wasn't even fat. And when you're
It's
young,
horrible.
you're a sponge. And anything that is so aggressive and hostile with words and even, physical. He used to pull my ponytail so hard that my hair would come out.
Oh my
Oh, he was
God.
a monster. Yeah,
Oh my God. Things that you
he
put
was
up with.
yeah, and but I chose him because it again, that's in my show too. Like
Yeah.
I thought he was going to help me go to the Olympics, but you can't really, I started late. I started as a grandmother practically. I was 11.
You were
So
11.
I knew,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
And
Yeah.
you need to start really young if you want
Yeah.
to, I mean, some kids are, anyway, yes.
You say a very
That's
interesting thing in this one Instagram post. I'm going to put it up here because it relates, I think.
I love
okay.
about solo theater is it's the scariest thing I've ever done on stage to date, and that's why I love it. I also love it because it's not just acting, storytelling, or stand-up comedy. It's all of them combined, and it's about bearing your soul, so it becomes its own entity and its own thing, and that's what I love about it.
Interesting. So we had a guy on the show. His name is Stefan Haves, and he is a director of Cirque du Soleil. And he said a lot of the reason we perform is because we want to see if we can survive to get to the other side. And one of the things we get so much joy out of is surviving a play or a performance or a one-person show or that kind of thing. Do you think that's part of the thrill of putting, because obviously you're drawn to things that scare you? Why do you think you're so drawn to it?
For me, it's a little different than that. I don't really see it as like surviving something. I feel ever since I was a little kid, I always felt things more acutely than the average person, I believe. I know that I'm an empath and extremely sensitive.
Mhm.
I have had a lot of years of therapy to help me with that, thank God.
Yeah.
But for me, I've always wanted to make people feel something, whatever that is. Like, please share my pain with me because I don't want to be the only one feeling pain. I know that sounds horrible, but when I was younger, that was true. Like, or happiness. I want you to feel happy. I don't want you to be, wallowing in this horrible puddle of hideousness. I want to lift you up and help you feel happy and joyful. And more than anything, like with my show, I want people to know that we are all human, we are all coexisting, and you can move through the real darkness and you can get over to the other side, but you
Mhm.
can't do it alone. I don't think you can do it alone. I couldn't do it alone. My mom couldn't do it alone.
When when you were younger and your mom was having mental issues, did you feel responsible for that or feel like you needed to fix it in some way?
Oh, I absolutely felt like it was my duty to help my mom
You have that
because I was the
story
only
about the cake.
female.
You have that story about the
Yeah,
cake where you bring her the cake
yeah,
to the institution and you
yeah,
really feel like that helped her. She overcame it too, which is just an amazing thing. She was
yeah,
institutionalized. She had shock
yeah,
therapy, all these things, and
yeah.
somehow she overcame it. That must have been very inspiring for you to see.
Very inspiring.
Yeah.
And when I was, it's like the acorns fall close to the tree actually. And
Yeah.
you know, I always felt like I was running away from my mom, but I was literally kind of running in place. And I ran far away trying not to end up like that. But one day that bit me in the ass, and it was like, yeah, my demons were right behind me the whole time.
Yeah.
And now I have to face the music, because you just, those kinds of things, you just can't get through life not being unscathed by things that are that big, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah,
That's good, because I have a transition.
Oh, good.
Lunch therapy. The doctor's out to lunch. So my question to you now is, so you were in this kind of good place. You were being trained in stand-up comedy in New York. You were at the Ensemble Studio Theatre, which had some of the greatest playwrights come through there and some of the greatest actors come through there. What made you up and move to Los Angeles?
I got really, really sick. When I taught competitive ice skating, I taught for a long time, but the ice rink air is really toxic. And I also, earlier, I had Epstein-Barr, fibromyalgia, questionable Lyme disease test. I was a mess, but I was also going through a divorce. And that's when my mom was like, Kezia, you're mobile. And your doctors said, like, literally my doctors at that time, I went to a lot of doctors. Every single one of them was like, we don't know what to do with you. Right now, where science is, you need to just go move to the sun, get as close to the ocean air, and just sit out there. I'm like, what, are we living during the Renaissance era right now?
Right.
Because, I was just like, okay. And then my mom said, you've always wanted to live by the ocean. Go now, because you'll never be this mobile.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad I listened to her, and, and I just moved, and that was
it a shock? I mean, New York is so different from Los Angeles, and the way at least when I came here, which might have been about the same time, their knowledge of theater and that kind of stuff, it's kind of like you go in with a resume with a bunch of theater on it, and they're like, well, so you've done nothing.
Right.
What was it like coming in like this? Was it a culture shock for you?
Yeah, it was. I felt like I was kind of tripping half the time. Not that I really know what tripping is, but I mean, a little bit maybe, but it was weird. It was very like up and down for the first year and a half. Sometimes I'd love it, and then other times I'd be driving my car crying, like, what the hell did I do? And then a friend of mine said, once you find your people, you'll be great, blah, blah. And then I got some really cool, close friends. And that's when it really stuck. I, at that point, was doing more comedy. So I was going around doing all the open mics and all that stuff. And I was in the process of, trying to find an agent for acting, la, la, la. And I did, but I was focused a little bit more on comedy. But the thing is, I think LA gets a little bit of a bad rap because there is theater.
Yeah,
you just
totally
have to
is.
go to it. You
course.
have to find it. So.
Well, I mean, there's probably more theater here than any other place, maybe. You know what I mean? There's a ton of it. It's just not it's not in the focal, at least it hasn't in the past, been in the focal point of what everybody's attention is on.
Right.
People's attention is on theater more in New York, more in Chicago, in Europe. In LA, it's sort of a means to an end, or it's seen as a sort of a means to an end more than an art piece in itself sometimes. I mean, obviously there's the Geffen and there's all kinds of wonderful theater going on. And there's a lot of great theater going on in very small theaters like Theater of Note and a lot of great places, Odyssey Theater.
And the White Fire Theater is awesome.
Oh, is that where you performed your White One Woman show? Wow.
Yeah.
What is that
and
like? Because they do a lot of cool stuff over there.
They do. I highly recommend going and seeing shows there. They have great plays, great writers, great directors, and Brian Rasmussen, who runs it, he's amazing, and everyone that works there is great.
I think that's also where they had the Dead Pilots Society, where they would stage pilots that got killed or never got made. And it was a kind of a neat thing. And also, I think that theater has like a history. Like a history to
they
it.
do. They have a really strong history. And, you know, and then there's also the Santa Monica Playhouse that if you're over on the west side, they have a lot of good theater and stuff like that.
Pacific Resident Theater Ensemble, the Actors Gang. I mean, there's a ton of great theater here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely. I think you're right. I think, so what was the comedy culture like at that time though? Because I mean, at the sort of male dominated at the time.
You know, for me personally, I felt that it was really a rough racket. To be perfectly honest, it was very misogynistic. I carried mace with me. I didn't find it very pleasant going to do open mics and crap like that. Like I got beat up verbally a lot. And you know, it just after a while, every time you get off stage, this is how it was. Hey, baby, you know, you're kind of funny, but maybe if you said your joke like this, you'd be better.
No,
and I'm
really?
like, yeah. And then being kind of like this nice Buffalonian, I really just felt like saying, fuck off, dick. But did I ever say that? No, I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to swear.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, sorry. But anyway, I'm like,
I mean, really, don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. I know we're breathing, doing yoga.
One of the things about having a show on YouTube is there's nobody to answer to necessarily. I mean, they might ding me a little bit, but it's my show, so we can say whatever. And also, you're having a strong emotion, and it's okay. It's not like you're just saying that for shock value. That's the thing too. Is I don't want to stop your train of thought here, but I do find that now the culture seems to have changed a lot since then. I was looking at a performance that you did at the Ice House, and Sally introduced the show. I didn't even recognize her. It was so long ago.
I know.
She had like dark hair, and then you came out on stage and you were really funny and the crowd was loving you, but it was a different persona than what I see as Kezia now. It's like you had on like a kind of a tough like exterior. Do you think you put on a certain character that was working for that time? And do you think you've evolved as a comedian in different,
Yeah, I think I was probably a little too angry.
Yeah.
Because, and the thing is, it's like, if you look at me, being that angry is probably not helpful because people might expect a little more of a golden retriever kind of vibe.
So interesting, this angry thing. So interesting. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, I had a lot of anger in me. Oh, big time.
Well, a lot of us have anger. I know sometimes, I think of myself as a pretty easygoing guy. But then I was at a bar like after my acting class, and one of the people there was like, you got so much anger, man. I wish I could take you to a room where you could there's these rooms where you can demolish stuff. And this guy was telling me that would be so hilarious to watch you just demolish stuff because of all that anger. And then another person was saying to me that he's like, you got crazy eyes. It's hilarious, but you got crazy eyes. And I was like, what? And I don't know whether this is just a way that people are seeing me or if they're seeing something that I don't realize, which I'm sure I do have a lot of anger and frustration. But I don't know. It's so interesting that you say this because I know one of the things that we talk about in acting sometimes is, when you're doing comedy, frustration is really funny. When somebody's trying to do something and they're really frustrated. Yeah. But if it tips over into just pure anger, a lot of times it's not funny. Yeah. And do you find that? And do you find yourself trying to modulate that? And then we talk about Lewis Black, who, he seems to be angry the entire time.
I know.
That's like his whole thing. So maybe it's women can't be angry. Maybe it's certain men can't be angry. I don't know. What do you think?
I think if you tiptoe well between fake anger and real anger, like if you can keep it where it's funny, and that's a challenge because it is a fine line. But like I know that when I do get frustrated or angry-ish in an act, in a bit, It's like the one that you showed actually, where I was like, that usually gets a bigger laugh.
It's
And I
interesting.
know it's because I went a little too like just scathing with my words or the tonality of my voice. Because I have a loud voice, like my whisper wakes the dead. So, it's like, yeah, it's just, I think really it's that balance
Yeah.
of not going too angry. But Joel, you touched on something. I wanted to kind of bring it up because I think it's a beautiful thing that's happened in our comedy community nowadays. Uh, there's one thing that was really good that happened out of COVID, and that was so many of us were doing Zoom shows, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Which
You had that
allowed,
Friday Night Funnies, which was super popular and great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a blast. And I'm really grateful that that all came about. It was very organically, it came about very organically. But so what's happened is I think it created a tighter community because more of us actually got to know each other
Yeah, I think it's
on
so true.
Zoom. So you could, like, one night you could do 3 Zooms and literally meet anywhere from 20 to 50 people or
Yeah.
comedians, right? Or
Yeah.
even audience members. Like when I opened my show up live, the audience members were like, "Hey, Ann, how are you doing?" And they're like, "Oh my God,
I
it's
love
nice
it.
to
I
meet you
love
in
it. Yeah.
person." I didn't have to introduce anybody. But what I think it's really given, especially female comics, is a sense of community and safety,
Yeah.
which was not present before COVID.
There
Not to this degree.
were a lot of classes too going on where we were all in the Zoom together and we all worked on our stuff together. Because a lot of times as a comedian, you go do open mics, you go places and you perform, but you don't really communally work on something together, and talk to each other in a constructive, positive way. And I also found that there were Zoom rooms where you could go do open mics like. I think it was Pretty Funny Women had one that I would go to, and they're like, yeah, a man can come to it, and it was really, I got to know so many people, and some of them were in, like Jay Patterson, who's in Kansas, has become a regular on my show and a really good friend, but it was through classes and Zoom and all that stuff. So when we came out of it, did you find the whole landscape different?
I don't carry mace in my purse anymore.
Those people are still out there, right? I mean, those people are still out there.
But it's kind of interesting because those people, they're known. People talk and warn people that, oh, that one's like, that one's a misogynist who, no, swipe left to that one. Like I just love what has come out of it. And the other thing is too, as far as females are concerned, back before, you would meet your female comics that were like your gal pals, right? But I feel like it's less competitively catty and much more, I want to lift you up. Let's all go. Let's all go to the top, which did not exist. And I am really, really grateful for that because, so many of my comedic friends, we go and we do mics together. You had Lisa Orkin on. I was listening to hers. Like we do the D cups with our friend Joanne Scotia, and we're all like supporting each other. And then what's really cool is, we're not saying, hey, you should tell your joke like this. It's more like, hey, I thought of something that I think might punch your joke up. Can I share it with you? And now, I'm always open to that. And then we're always like, hey, and it's like this really electrical energy that's like, it just keeps you wanting to do more, be more, and, get better at it, So
what is your process now for writing jokes? Like where do you start when you have, want to get new material?
I got, you know what? I'm going to be really transparent right now.
Okay.
I have some issue. Like when I was younger, I would write all the time. It would just, I do write, and it's usually when I'm in the car when I can't really write, then I'm like, think of something, gotta pull over and then whatever. Um, I I've actually gotten to the point where I'm going to take a class. I'm taking a new class because I need to get through a bit of writer's block.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at right now. What I like to do is I go through my sets and like if I have writer's break, I just go through my sets, look at stuff. I always take notes in my phone, always.
Yeah.
And then I'll start rereading those. If there's anything that's remotely funny, then I'll start writing on it.
And then where do you take it? Do you take it to shows? Do you take it to open mics?
I do more like at the mics and just
Mhm.
see how it hits. And I I like actually what I like to do is I like to riff, just go up and just freestyle.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always give you jokes, but a lot of times it'll give you a premise, or sometimes it'll give you your punchline.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find punchlines in the riffing, and then I go back and kind of fill it in a little bit.
Well, that's
But
interesting, like a reverse
yeah.
joke, writing it backwards.
Yeah. I can't say that I have this technique. I
Yeah.
do a lot of things because I'm a little ADHD kind of thing. I don't like to do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
So I'll journal. Sometimes I just journal. And then, when you do the brain dump, all of a sudden
Yeah.
you get beyond the brain dump. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God.
Yeah,
And
it
then
like
you're like,
opens
this
up a
is
whole new
funny.
thing. You're like, this is funny.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I almost have to get into like a state where I'm not going, what's funny? You know what I mean? I have to get into a state where
Yeah.
I'm like taking a point of view on something. Like I write every day, and there's so much richness that comes out of it and so much garbage at the same time.
Yeah.
And so much anxiety and all kinds of different things that are coming out.
Yeah.
But then I find, and I don't even necessarily know it in the moment, it's just something then sticks with me. We do this thing on Tuesdays on this show where we call it the Trash Panda Comedy Club, where me and whoever's on the show with me co-hosting, we each do 3 minutes in the Trash Panda, and it's like stuff that we are just working on. And I
love
find
it.
that getting it out in front of people or getting on at a mic and working on something that is really fresh,
Yeah.
it develops faster.
Yeah.
For me.
And absolutely. And I see like my friend Karen Haber, she is a comedic genius. And the beauty of going out and doing mics with your friends is like, for example, Karen, she had this premise she was working on. So I got to see I think it was the second time she had brought this one story premise up on stage. And now she's killing it
Yeah.
with it. And she just got Best of Fest
Really?
at Flappers Comedy
Wow.
Festival, or
Wow.
Burbank Comedy Festival. Yeah. And it's like, so I love just watching other comedians do their process and work, because you learn no matter what, you're learning and just being inspired,
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the main things that is the most difficult thing, is just to remain inspired and kind of focus that inspiration on something. What about projects for your acting? Are you writing? Because I know you had a play that you had written, turned into a screenplay. Are you working on things for vehicles for yourself?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so my solo show, I have my friend Stacy Demalski, I took a class with her, and so she does ebooks. And she does a training on that. So I started breaking up something how when all of a sudden I was going to do my stand-up comedy, but then I realized, you know what? I already have this solo show.
Yeah.
And I have an end game to my solo show.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times screenplays get picked up when they're based on books. or, taken from.
Sure.
So,
It's
I'm
IP.
starting. Yeah,
They call it IP,
exactly.
intellectual
Thank you.
property.
Yep, exactly. So I'm in the process. I have two ebooks that I'm working on. I have to get them edited.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm breaking up my solo show and putting them into ebooks right now. So that's what I'm currently working on, because then my director and one of my best friends, Charlene Ward, said that she sees my show as a screenplay.
Wow.
So I listen to Charlene because she's amazing.
It's good to have those people that you listen to.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, we're doing it, girl. So
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the end of the show, unfortunately.
Oh my goch, it went so fast, Joel.
Oh, good. I'm glad it went so fast. I like it when people have a good time on the show. That's what it's all about. Really fantastic insights and really great discussion with you today. So I appreciate that. Hopefully people that have seen this can get it out to other people out there that are doing what we're doing, putting one foot in front of the other every day.
Yeah. Well, you've got a great thing going. I love your show. I subscribed. I'm really proud of you. This is amazing. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And there we got some thanks in the chat room. And now we're going to dance it out. I got a great dance break for us. It is called the Holy Ghost Tent Revival. And they're doing, what they do is I bring on covers of songs. That's the way I get away with playing people's music on the show and featuring them and artists that maybe, I don't know, these people are kind of big, but I just heard about them recently and they're good though. And they're doing a Beck song. And let's do this thing. The Beck song is called Deborah. And we're going to dance it out. Thanks so much for being on the show. Thanks everybody for watching. Vernice Clear enjoyed the interview. Great to see you, Vernice. Let's get this thing going.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
Yeah. All right. This is a live performance.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I don't know this song. I don't know this song, but he says Zanku Chicken in it. And Zanku Chicken is one of my favorite places. Chicken reference.
Only you got a thing that I just got to get with. I just got to get with you.
I love the name of this band too.
Yeah.
I wanna get with you. Yeah, your sister. I think the name's Deborah. I wanna get with you. Your sister. I think the name's Deborah.
All right. This has been Lunch Therapy. Head on over to Holy Ghost Tent Revival. Pass this thing around. Share and like and subscribe. And thank you so much, Kezia, for being on the show.
Girl,
see you soon.
Thank you,
I only
Joel.
wanna be down
Great.
with you.